I want a divorce. What? Divorce? There's no reason for us to remain married. For the first time in 3 months, my husband spoke. Ever since we tied the knot, he became this demeaning jerk, always taking the cheap shots at me. And the cherry on top? He hadn't uttered a word to me in the past 3 months. Oh, is that so? Fine by me, let's divorce. I don't need a useless wife. He sneered as he replied. Since you suggested it, we won't be dividing any assets. Agreed. You're surprisingly compliant, but how pitiful. A divorced woman with no savings or a family. You'll be all on your own. Can't wait to see how you're going to scrape by. And with that, I walked out, leaving my sneering husband behind. But not long after we divorced, he couldn't stop himself from constantly calling me. I'm Violet, a 28-year-old working homemaker. I met my then-husband David through a mutual friend. David, a diligent employee at a leading travel agency, was kind-hearted and treated me really well. I wasn't exactly seasoned in the love department, so I fell for him hard and we started dating. After 3 years together, he popped the question, Violet, will you marry me? I promise to make you happy. Thank you, David. I'm over the moon. I had tears streaming down my face, and he gently said, We need to break the news to your mom. I hope she'll be thrilled. I bet she will be. Her only child is getting married after all. I grew up in a single-parent household. My parents split up when I was just 4, and from what I gather, my mom left with me in tow. My father's a bit of a blur. I haven't seen him even once since they parted ways. I remember him as a kind man. I never broached the subject of their split because it's clear my mom doesn't like to talk about it. I never prodded her for more information. Ever since, it's just been my mom and me. She raised me on her own. Our life was humble, but we had each other's backs as a mother-daughter team. My bond with my mom is rock solid. When I told her about my upcoming marriage, she was ecstatic, practically doing a happy dance. Violet, please be happy, and David, promise you'll look after Violet. She implored, her eyes welling up with tears. Absolutely, David responding warmly. Seeing this, I was overwhelmed with joy. I was sure that I could create a happy family with him. But not long after our life started as a married couple, he and I began to butt heads. The bone of contention? My choice to keep working. He had wanted me to leave my job and devote myself to homemaking. Initially, I agreed. But when I shared this at work, my colleagues convinced me to stay. Enjoying my work and finding it fulfilling, I impulsively decided, I'll keep working. You promised to quit. Why the sudden change of heart? During our discussion, a frustrated David questioned me, catching me off guard. Don't be so mad. An extra income can be a good thing, right? I wanted you to focus on the home. If you're working, who's going to handle the chores? Well, I'll do my best to juggle work and home. Please, let me continue working. As I pleaded, he sighed. All right, you can work. Make sure the home doesn't suffer. I won't lift a finger. Okay. It didn't seem like I could ask him for help with the chores since I was working too. True to his words, he didn't help around the house at all. Maybe he wasn't too thrilled about my decision to be a working wife, or perhaps it was just his nature, but he began to be nitpicking at my homemaking. One evening over dinner, he dropped this bomb. The food tonight is terrible. I can't stomach this. Really? Did I mess up something? What don't you like? I tasted my dish myself, but couldn't find anything amiss. In response to my confusion, he scowled and said, Do I need to spell out every little detail? Are you that dense? What? How come you don't know my tastes, even though you're my wife? I don't know what to say. I found myself instinctively looking down. Then he got up and made to leave. Hold on, where are you going? What does it look like? I'm off to the convenience store. Beats having this meal. He shrugged off my call and walked out the door. No one had ever spoken to me so harshly before. I was too aback to retort. At the time, I had dismissed it as him just having an off day. I had no idea this would turn into a pattern that would make my life miserable. His barbs grew sharper, leveraging my guilt and choosing to continue working to belittle me further. There's a hair on the floor. The bathwater's not hot enough. He pulled me up for the smallest issues and gave me an earful. The traits I once considered manly had morphed into outright dominance post-marriage. Still, I bore the brunt of his unfair treatment. I wasn't sure if I still loved him, but I held on, not wanting to disappoint my mom, who was over the moon about our marriage. Right then, I got a text from my mom saying, "I need to see you." When I hurried over, I found her, whom I hadn't seen in a while, looking alarmingly frail. "Mom, why have you lost so much weight? What's going on?" I pressed her for answers, and then she quietly confided. "Violet, I have cancer. It's already spread, and doctors have only given me 3 months." "What? Cancer? I can't believe this." I just broke down crying right then and there. Her cancer was advanced, and they said there was nothing more they could do. "Mom, I'm gonna stick by you through all of this. I support you." "Thank you, Violet. But don't let this disrupt David's life." Even in such a state, she was concerned about him, and I couldn't bring myself to tell her about the unreasonable way he'd been treating me. When I had returned home that day, I filled David in on my mom's condition. "Mom's going to be moved to a hospice soon. I'll need to spend some time at the hospital to take care of her." David, appearing completely unfazed by the news, retorted, "What about your job and the chores?" I'll manage my work, but as far as for the housework, I could use some help." He scoffed. "So you couldn't manage housework but kept your job, and now you have to spend time tending to your mom, huh?" "But she's..." "And you expect me to help out? Give me a break! You'll keep up with the chores, like always." "But..." I was dumbstruck by his response. I had hoped he would give me a bit more understanding, given that a family member was seriously ill. My hopes were dashed spectacularly. "If you slack off on the chores, there'll be hell to pay," he warned me. Remembering my frail mom's words, "Don't let it trouble David's life," I could only nod in acceptance. From then on, my life became a whirlwind. Stealing time to visit my mom in the hospital, I was barely keeping up with the chores. Seeing her grow weaker each day was heart-rending and made it even harder to focus on the house. 2 weeks after I started my hospital visits, David called me out. "Hey, Violet, my shirt isn't ironed." It's true, the shirt he was holding hadn't been ironed. "Sorry, I've been hardly sleeping. I'll iron it now." "Don't give me excuses." He shouted at me, and I instinctively recoiled. "Excuses? I'm also worn out from taking care of my mom." As I responded through my tears, he snipped coldly. "So your mom's more important to you than your own husband, huh?" "But Mom has terminal cancer. So what? You're full of excuses. Such a disappointment." "It's probably because you were raised by a single mother." His harsh words left me speechless. He looked at me with a contemptuous glance. "Ugh, talking to you is just a waste of time." "What?" From that moment, he stopped responding to anything I said. In fact, he started ignoring me entirely. No matter how hard I tried to communicate, he wouldn't respond. Even my everyday greetings of "have a good day" and "welcome home" were dismissed with a sigh. Living like this, my spirit started to break. Being berated was hard, but being ignored like this, like I didn't even exist, was even more crushing. I finally broke down crying in my mom's hospital room. "What's the matter, Violet?" Nothing, Mom. I'm sorry." "Violet, come here." It appeared she sensed something was wrong. She caressed my hair with her frail hand like she used to. "Violet, this is going to be tough for you, but you need to hear what I have to say." What she shared next was nothing short of astounding. And even her revelation, David's coldness continued. Even though I persevered with my domestic duties, in time he started quietly discarding the meals I prepared. Being at home was a constant knot in my stomach. The only respite was the time spent in the hospital with my mom. However, that solace didn't last. After a long struggle with illness, she finally succumbed. After handling the hospital formalities, I returned home to inform David. "I've texted you this, but my mom passed away." He offered no response. "The funeral's in 2 days, and I need to start preparing." Again, he ignored me, heading off to another room. It was evident he had no intention of attending the funeral. I was at my breaking point. The continuous neglect, his callous comments, and now his absence at my mom's funeral. I can't stay in this marriage. That was the moment I resolved to divorce him. But there was another pressing task. In my funeral attire, I proceeded to the funeral home. The day after my mom's funeral, I tried to communicate with David, who continued his silent treatment. I need to discuss something important. As expected, he ignored me. I want a divorce. What? Divorce? For the first time in 3 months, he spoke. Yes, I can't continue with you anymore. Now that my mom is gone, there's no reason for us to remain married. Well, okay, I'll divorce you. I don't need a useless wife like you, he retorted with a smirk. Since you suggested it, we won't be dividing any assets. Agreed. You're surprisingly compliant, but how pitiful. A divorced woman with no family or savings, alone in the world. It'll be amusing to see how you manage. That's not your concern. My lawyer will be contacting you. Ignoring his derisive grin, I left him with my lawyer's business card. I gathered my things, and I moved out that day. A month later, as my routine, I was praying in front of my mom's portrait in my new house. My phone rang out of the blue. The name on the display was David's. I ignored it and put the phone aside, but the calls kept coming. It was like relentless assault. Because of his persistence, I eventually picked up. Hello? Hey, where are you? I need to talk to you. I sighed at the barrage of questions and reluctantly gave him my new address. A few hours later, David showed up at my residence, a mansion in a prime location. He stood at the gate, gaping at the house in disbelief. Why did you keep calling? What do you need? Upon seeing me at the gate, he expressed his surprise. Wait, this is your place? How'd you end up in such a mansion? His face showed confusion as he kept shifting his gaze between me and the house. I guided him, still bewildered, into the living room. First things first, explain. How do you manage to get a place like this after I left you without any property? As I calmly sipped my tea, he blurted out his questions. You're wondering about the house. It was a gift from my father. He thought I would need to go somewhere post-divorce. What? Father? But you were raised by a single mother. To his astonishment, I proceeded to explain. My mom, on her deathbed, had urged me to contact with my father once she is gone. Turns out my father is a wealthy man who fell in love with my mom, his housemaid, and that's how I came to be. However, his parents had not approved of him marrying someone with a lower status. The continuous torment from that sadly led to her falling sick. To avoid further strife, she vowed to stay out of their affairs and departed from home. My father, in his parents' presence, feigned indifference towards my mom, yet he maintained contact with her and provided financial aid as needed. Upon discovering my marital distress, she shared my father's contact information. I was reunited with my father at my mom's funeral. I had longed to see you for so long. As he embraced me, weeping, he pledged his support now that both of his dissenting parents were no more. I informed him about the mistreatment from David and expressed my intention to divorce. My father then met my gaze and said, let's arrange a home for you as soon as the divorce is finalized. And that's why I live in this house. I'm not entirely alone. I'm still employed and financially stable. It must be a letdown for you at not witnessing my pitiful state. As I stated this calmly, David clenched his teeth and appeared frustrated. However, he quickly redirected the conversation. Yeah, whatever. But I'm here today to talk about something else. Are you aware of the El Dorado Resort, a luxurious lodging establishment that has grown nationwide? It's one of my company's primary clients, but they suddenly expressed their desire to terminate our contract. Really? And what about it? They pointed a finger at me. When I asked for some reason maintaining that I had done nothing but blunder in my duties, they advised me to ask my ex-wife. You? What does that even mean? At that, I chuckled softly as he appeared perplexed. What on earth is happening? Do you know the chairman of El Dorado Resort? I think it's Joseph Erickson. That's him right there. I pointed to my father standing there. What? Why is Chairman Erickson here? He sprang to his feet, astonished, and my father, clearing his throat, replied, If my daughter decides to invite her ex-husband to the house, wouldn't it be normal for me, her father, to be present? Daughter? Father, is Chairman Erickson... David. Frozen with realization, my father announced, Now that I'm aware of your mistreatment of Violet, I have no intention of continuing business with your company. Take a hand and leave immediately. David began to panic and spun to face me. Violet! If I lose this contract with Eldorado Resort, I won't be able to maintain my position in the company. Please, convince your father to rethink. Look, let's give this another shot. This time, let's work on making a happy family. I shoved him, who was pleading, and hollered at him. Don't make self-serving statements. Who could ever forget the harm you inflicted on me? I have no intention of restarting anything with you. I will never forgive you, you lout. No. He hung his head low, a mix of tears and snot smeared over his face. My father seized him by the scruff of his neck and hurled him out of the house. Later on, David was dismissed by the company, held accountable for his actions. The atrocities he committed against me were circulated as a rumor around the company, and it was suggested that he would struggle to secure another job within the same industry. He currently lives in a rundown apartment and spends his days hunting for jobs. It's likely hard for him, given his inflated pride, but I hope he will be living reflecting upon his actions. As for me, I live in the mansion gifted by my father and work hard every day. I share a healthy relationship with my father. It's a tad irritating how he constantly tries to assist me, but having family is comforting. Recently, my father proposed a matchmaking meeting with a subordinate who favored within his company. He seemed genuine in his photos, so I intend to meet him soon. Moving forward, I aspire to lead my life positively, appreciating my family.